Hey guys, today Katie and I are at the Colliseum, and we just did a little audio guide tour around telling us all about it, and it was super interesting. So I'm going to try and give all you guys the highlights. Right now this is just the museum part of it, which is around the outer concourse of the Colosseum. You can see the center of it in there, which I'll walk to right now. So the Roman Empire lasted for about 1,000 years, from 500 BC to 500 AD. And the Colosseum was built at around 0. And it was completed in just 10 years, which for a giant structure built on an old drained lake is pretty impressive. Obviously, they used the Roman arch to construct it because all you see around the Colosseum is a bunch of rounded arches.
That's why many.
Katie and I got here early today before the Colosseum opened so that we didn't have to wait too long. We got here at about 8 o'clock and it didn't open until 8:30, so we only had to wait maybe like 20 minutes, which by now you would probably have to wait an hour or more. And later in the day it'll be multiple hours. So worked out good for us. And it's a lot more crowded now than it was a half hour ago. We practically had the place to ourselves. But I'll try and find an opening to show you guys the center of the Colosseum. So up here is the very top level of the Colosseum. This is where the cheap seats would have been. And the Colosseum's seating was like strictly divided between the classes of society. So like the emperor would obviously have his own box right around the 50-yard line, ground level. And then like the politicians would have their own reserved seats, the senators. And then as you move up the different seating tiers, you would move up or down the classes of society. So like the most wealthy would be in the lower rows, and then the poorest of the poor would be in the upper rows. The interesting thing is that attending these Colosseum events was free. It was sponsored by the wealthiest people of society. So this is the center of the stadium. It's pretty darn big. Not quite the size of like a football field or a soccer field, but still pretty big. It's an oval. What you see over here is more what it would have looked like. What you see over there, that is actually all the underground passageways, because the floor has been removed over there. But those are all passageways that would basically be the backstage of the Colosseum, where they had prisoners' cells and where they would raise up the wild animals on elevators, things like that. It's really interesting. They would have like really elaborate productions here, and they would have the Colosseum going all day long. So like the first thing would maybe be like some wild animals let loose on each other to see, if a bear would win or a lion or whatever. And they would bring exotic animals from Africa, like rhinos and lions and hippos, things like that. And everything they did here was pretty bloody. I think it mentioned that sometimes it was just something like a performance of jugglers or something like that, but I think most of the time it was very bloody and ended with people or animals dying. Some of the other things they did were just like publicly execute people, basically in like brutal ways. Sometimes it would be like a reenactment of a play, and the person that was going to be executed would like be dressed up as the main character, like Hercules or something, and then other characters and animals would basically kill that person the way that the hero died in the story. So yeah, they went all out, and they would like transform the arena into different settings, like a jungle or a palace, just with like props and stuff. Yeah, and like I said, the elevators, like they would have like a hunter in the arena, and then they would raise up a wild animal through an elevator, and the animal would come out of a blind, so like the hunter wouldn't even know what animal is coming out or where. And yeah, I mean, it's ingenious, and it's brutal and cruel, obviously, but also ingenious. So right there, if you guys can see the cross, that is, it's hard for me to see the phone screen because the sun is shining right on it, but hopefully you can see the cross there. That right now is a monument to the Christian martyrs that were killed here. And supposedly that's right where the emperor's box would have been. And then on that side of the Colosseum is where I think it's the 9 virgins would sit, and they, I want to say, like, lit the flame of Rome, or tended the flame of Rome, or something like that. And they were like specially chosen for this duty, and you know, they would obviously be kept as virgins their whole life to do this, and then they were given these seats of honor at the Colosseum. Yeah, interesting. And then another thing that's interesting that you see in movies a lot is that sometimes, like, if a gladiator would be on the ground, the other gladiator would go over to the emperor's box and ask him if the guy should die or not. And sometimes the emperor would decide whether or not the gladiator had fought hard enough to be allowed to live, or sometimes he would like let the masses of people in the Colosseum decide by doing the thumbs up or the thumbs down. So yeah, apparently that is actually fact, not fiction. So now we're going to look from the Colosseum to some of the surrounding architecture. So this up here I want to say the Arc de Triomphe, but that was built by, what was the name of the emperor? You guys are gonna have to look this one up on your own. I can't remember his name, which shame on me because I'm sure you guys all remember. But anyway, Constantine, that's what it is. Anyway, Constantine was, I think his mom and sister were Christian. This was like in the later part of the Roman Empire, and he supposedly saw this vision of a cross in the sky, and then the next day fought this decisive battle against his enemy and won, and that resulted in Rome becoming a Christian nation, and Christianity was like the religion that you had to be, which is really interesting because 100 years before that you could be killed for being a Christian, and then by I think it was 450 you could be killed for not being a Christian. So yeah, big change. And this archway basically memorializes that victory that he won, and all of the artwork and statues you see are taken from other Roman buildings and basically recycled onto this arch because it was made during the fall of the Roman Empire, the last 100 years. And then if you look this way, that was a temple, a giant temple, the biggest one in Rome. It was dedicated to 2 gods. One was the god of the city, which was Rome, or Roma, I believe. and the other one was Venus, the goddess of love. And there were two giant statues in there, one of each goddess that would sit back to back. And the names of the goddesses were inscribed, one on the front side of a slab and the other on the opposite side of the slab. And it's really funny because the names of the goddesses were palindromes. So one was Roma and the other one was Amor. One was the goddess Roma and the other one was the goddess of love. So yeah, pretty clever. And so this was like built on top of this raised up hill, and it was this giant temple that basically everyone in the city could see.